Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a new episode of the AUIS podcast. Today, we'll be talking about leadership, and for this subject, we have brought to you Mr. Matt. Welcome, Mr. Matt.
Thank you, Dasha. It's good to be with you.
I'm really glad that you came today and you had the chance to be with us. And I want to ask you at the beginning of the program to tell us a bit about yourself.
Sure. So my name is Matt Oshel. I've lived in Silmani for almost 10 years now. I came here from the United States. Before moving here, I worked as a lawyer for about 5 years. I have my doctorate in law. My undergraduate degree is in politics and economics. And came here with my initial job. I was teaching English at a language center in Bakhtiari because I wanted to make sure I had plenty of time to both work but also learn language. My goal was to be able to live here for a long time and to serve the people here, and not just in Silmani, but in the Kurdistan region. And so now I'm the country director of Global Leadership International.
Right.
We are a leadership development organization based out of the United States, originally founded to run a project in Kabul, Afghanistan, but now running also the GLI Leadership Institute here in Silmani as well.
I've got many questions just from what you said already. And the first question I want to ask you is, how is Kurdistan for you?
I love it here.
Yeah.
Really, we have come to know Suli as our home. My wife and I have been here since January of 2014. When we moved here, we had 2 kids.
Right.
We've 2 more have been born to us since then, and so we have 4 kids. And life here for our family is great.
We're really glad to hear this, and we're more than happy that this has become your new home. One more question. What are GLI's goals?
Our goal is to, we would say, help opportunity meet potential. We believe that there is great potential in Silmani, in the Suli province, across the Kurdistan region. And so unlike many organizations that come with a mindset of relief, like we're here to provide the solutions, I believe the solutions already live in the city. And what we want to do is create opportunities for learning, for training, for development, so that the solutions to Suli and Kurdistan's problems can be provided by the people of this city and of this province. We believe that the solutions are already here. We just need to help opportunity meet potential.
And I want to ask you, does everybody have leadership potential?
Absolutely. Everyone has leadership potential. I think the question is, what are the varying levels of sort of skill or natural talent? And then what are the levels of willingness to commit and work hard to develop those skills and abilities?
So the talent part or the talent aspect is not as important as the hard work aspect when it comes to leadership?
Absolutely. The hard work aspect, the focus on learning, growing, developing is always most important for anything. Leadership is no exception to that. We all have natural tendencies, inclinations, abilities, but if we don't put in the hard work to develop those, they don't develop themselves.
And how can somebody during their college years train those leadership skills that they have?
So the university years are a great opportunity for developing basically every facet of life. I recognize they're uniquely busy because of responsibilities for academics and a growing sense of responsibility for work, moving toward family life. But it's also a unique season of life where you can focus both on theoretical education, classroom training, and things like that, and couple that with practical experience. And so really the best focus that I could recommend for a university student wanting to develop leadership potential or leadership capacity would be to focus on both of those. Participate in good training seminars, but then also look for opportunities to practice what you are learning, putting the principles that you're learning into practice in the field. And one of the ways that we recommend people do that is either joining organizations, clubs, service projects, or if you don't have an opportunity like that, create it. Among your own group of friends, decide we're going to commit to doing a community service project in this neighborhood or in this village. And from that decision, leadership opportunities naturally arise.
And my next question is, What is leadership? What are the most common misconceptions about leadership that people have?
So I would say it's usually easiest to define what leadership is after a brief discussion about what it isn't. People do have many misconceptions or preconceived notions of what leadership is. Leadership is not a position. Leadership is not a title. Leadership is not about who is the strongest person in the room. Leadership is about that ability to influence other people through relationship and trust to where they will follow you because they believe that you are putting their best interests and the best interests of the broader community at the core, at the heart of what you're trying to do. So leadership that's based on power or leadership that's based on position puts its own self-interests at the core of the objectives. And it uses people to accomplish that self-interested goal. But true leadership puts the best interest of the community and the best interest of the team at the core.
Right.
And then as that becomes the focus, the leader is guiding the activities of all the different elements of the team to accomplish that goal. People can see that that is what's going on, and they will trust that leader. That trust builds relationship, and in that relationship, there's influence. And that influence is truly what in GLI, what we say is leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. True leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less.
So, and the influence is inevitably made through good people skill, right?
Absolutely.
What about people who say that they don't have good people skills? What is the solution for those people?
So I think, again, we have the danger of misunderstanding terminology or language.
Right.
So when we say good people skills, maybe some people think of Dale Carnegie, how to win friends and influence people. And you think, oh, you've got to be outgoing. You've got to be somebody who's able to make friends with anyone you meet. But I think there's a danger that if we base people skills based off of that, our perspective is going to be more about manipulation than influence. And here's what I mean by that. If I can, as soon as I meet a person, make them think that I'm just a warm, great guy that they want to trust when they don't know anything about me, then that's dangerous. I can get them to do whatever I want them to do, even if they don't know what my heart is truly about. And that's manipulation. But maybe I don't have the most magnanimous personality. Maybe I can't win the room the second I walk in. But over the course of days, weeks, months, as I interact with people, they can see my heart and my desire to serve the people around me. They learn to trust me. And that trust is far more valuable than excellent conversational skills in the first time we meet someone, because that builds deep influence. It's not about manipulation. It's about influence because they know what is behind what I'm saying and what I'm doing, and they trust it.
What happens if the trust is lost?
So trust is that that sense of relationship between two people, and I convictionally believe that all people are sinful. We have an inherent sin nature, and so we're going to do bad things against each other, sometimes on purpose, but more often by accident, by neglect, by inattention. And so the loss of trust is as inevitable as the sun rising tomorrow. Far too often people put the focus on how do we avoid breaking trust or losing trust, and I think that that's fighting a losing battle. Yes, we can be careful about how we live with each other, but ultimately trust is always going to be broken because there's two human beings involved, and humans are broken people. We're going to break trust. So your question actually gets to the true heart of the matter. How do we restore that trust when it is broken? And there's really sort of a two-part answer to that. Part one sounds ironic, but it actually works. So when trust has been broken, the first step toward restoring trust is to extend trust again. There's a great book written by a man named Stephen M.R. Covey. His father wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, but the son wrote The Speed of Trust. And he talks a lot about the importance of trust in relationships. And he talks about extending what we call smart trust. It's not naively or blindly just continuing to trust someone over and over again. We have an English proverb. We say, "Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me." So we definitely want to be careful, but at the same time, if every time someone burns trust with us, we withdraw from that relationship and this relationship and that relationship, eventually we will find that we are standing alone. And so step one, when trust has been broken, the first step to restoring that trust is to extend trust opportunities to someone again. Give them the chance to make it right. Give them the chance to succeed where maybe they failed in the past. And then step two is when that happens, for that person to deliver results. So, for example, if you and I were scheduled for the podcast this morning,
All right.
and you were here at 9 o'clock and you were waiting for me to get here and I didn't show, you would have been completely within your rights to say, these Americans, you can't trust them.
Stereotypes here.
They don't show up when they're supposed to. And then finally I call you at 9:30 and I say, I'm so sorry.
Right.
My car had a flat tire. I'm coming. I will be there. You have a choice to make. You can say, no, there's no time left. We will not do it. I don't trust you. Or you will say, I'm out of time for today, but let's try tomorrow. You give me a new opportunity. You extend trust again. Tomorrow, let's see what happens. Tomorrow, I guarantee you, I'll be here at 8:50. Why? Because I want to deliver results. I want to honor that trust that's been extended so that I can prove to you yesterday was not who I am. This is who I am. You can trust me. And when I do that, it closes the broken trust that existed before, because what happened was I didn't deliver, and that created a gap. But then when you give me a new opportunity, you extend trust again, and I deliver results, it closes the gap. It restores the relationship. And in fact, oftentimes it strengthens it more, because you've seen that really when it comes down to it, you can rely on me.
A month ago, you had a worship here at AUIS, and you talked about Simon Sinek's books, Leaders Eat Last, and there is a concept in it about the circle of trust, and I would like for you to discuss it here too.
Yeah. So, what you're seeing is that this concept of trust comes up in virtually every book written on leadership development and leadership capacity building. That's because everyone who truly studies the field of leadership knows that true leadership was built on relationships, and relationships are built on trust. So in Simon's book, Leaders Eat Last, he's talking about that circle of safety, the circle of trust that exists in a company or in an organization. It's the responsibility of the leader to create an environment in the workplace where people know that it's safe. They know that they can trust their leadership and they can trust those around them. And the way this happens is that the company has rules and policies, but also company culture. And then when those things are consistently put into place and practiced, then everyone inside the circle, everyone in the organization knows they mean what they say what they mean, I can trust them, and they're going to protect the organization and therefore protect me from threats within, from a bad actor on my team or in my office. And once they have that trust, that confidence that there is safety within the circle, then they can work together to face the challenges and dangers that come from without, from outside the entity, outside the organization. And really what that means is that the employees of a company are then freed up to work together to accomplish the mission and the goals of the organization and to overcome the challenges that the organization faces from the outside, as opposed to spending their energy fighting with each other for position or recognition within the organization.
And another question I want to ask is, what are the most common challenges that new leaders face?
So I would say the biggest challenge that a new leader faces, sort of regardless of the nature of the work, regardless of the situation that brought them into this role as a leader, is going to be what we call buy-in. They face the challenge of getting their employees, their team members, their subordinates to believe in the vision and mission and goals that they want to set for the team or the organization, or to believe in the leader's ability to direct them toward accomplishing those things. And this is the reason why I think that's the biggest challenge. Anytime there's a change up in leadership and you have somebody new in charge, that means that usually there was a window of time where some uncertainty was created. The old leader was out. Now there's a vacancy at the top, and people are wondering, okay, who's going to be in charge? Who's going to be the leader for this next season of our work? And when that vacancy exists, and maybe there's a few different people who are thinking, oh, I could do that job. There's going to be some different ideas, some different thoughts formulated about vision, mission, values, goals, some of the core DNA of a company or an organization. And then inevitably, when one person emerges as the new leader, they may not have unanimous support of all of those that they're supposed to lead, because some of those people were the ones wishing they were going to be in the seat, wishing they would have the role. And so now the new leader has this challenge, this responsibility of getting them to buy in, to agree this is the priority. These are the objectives. This is the mission and the goal. And these are the values by which we're going to operate. And so a lot of organizations by default try to get rid of this challenge by establishing those things at a higher level than the leader. They establish company-wide mission, vision, values, et cetera, that don't change when there is a change in leadership. And I think that that's a dangerous approach, because in a sense it takes away one of the great responsibilities of the leader to set the vision, to cast the vision, and to set the values and the goals. And so while there is a value to some clarity and some continuity in vision and values and goals, I think there's more importance for the leader to be able to leverage these very valuable tools in creating buy-in from their organization, from their employees and their subordinates whenever they come into a place of leadership.
Another question I want to ask is about college life. How can students balance their academics with their leadership positions?
So I mentioned this earlier, that university is a uniquely challenging time in terms of it is busy, but I think the bigger challenge is that it's a shift in level of busyness. And so I'm 40 years old now. I've spent a chunk of my life outside of academia, outside of university. I've worked in the professional world, the country director for an NGO. So I now have lots of professional experience, and I can go ahead and warn you, you will get busier the older you get as you move into your career, and certainly if you advance in your career into positions of leadership. But that being said, I still remember the unique feeling of busyness and intensity in the university years. And that really comes from three different factors that are all sort of colliding. You're at the peak of your academic challenges. You're at the peak of your social development, your tendency to be developing new relationships, spending a lot of time with your friends, and all of those things are valuable and take a lot of time. And then you're at the opening, the beginning of your opportunities to develop your future professional career, whether that's in internships or starting your own, startup business, or even just working a lower level job in the industry you hope to one day be advancing in your career. And so those three factors really collide to make university uniquely busy. And that is only enhanced by the fact that you're coming out of the high school years where your education was very much packaged up and handed to you by your teachers and by the school system, and everything was provided for you by your family at home. And so it's a transitional time that can feel exceptionally busy. And so my advice for a university student is the same advice I would give to anyone who is in an exceptionally busy season of life and wants at the same time to take on a new goal or a new objective, particularly want to see development in something like their leadership capacity. We have to figure out wise ways to multitask. And so here would be one suggestion of what that could look like during the university years. So your academic demands are high. You're taking chemistry and biology and English literature and Kurdish poetry or whatever subject you're studying, and you've got other classmates in there that are studying the same things as well. They're encountering the same challenges. And so maybe a simple way to combine your academic pursuits with an opportunity to pursue leadership development would be to start a study group and say to 3 or 4 of your friends from in class, hey, let's get together on Friday afternoons. Let's go to a cafe here in town and let's review the notes from the week. Let's look ahead to the readings for next week. And let's figure out, is there any way that we can help each other grow in our understanding? Is there any questions that maybe you have that I or someone else in the group is in a good position to answer so that you don't fall behind? We have a test coming up next week. Can we get together and study together? And that may sound simplistic, but these things don't happen without some level of leadership being taken. Somebody has to decide who's going to get together. Somebody has to decide where are we going to meet? What time are we going to meet? How are we going to structure our time and make the best use of it? And all of these things are leadership. They're taking responsibility for the things that need to be done for the sake of the people. And you're going to sacrifice some of your own time to make a plan for those things because you want to serve the greater good. That's leadership. And so you have just exercised and practiced leadership principles while simultaneously pursuing academic excellence. That's what I would recommend, is you find smart ways to multitask. Let your desire for leadership development serve your need for academic engagement.
There are certain people who doubt that they can be leaders. What message do you have for them?
So, we said at the outset that there's definitely natural talents, natural giftings, but I hope what you've heard me say over and over again is that real, true leadership is about a heart-level decision to care most about the people around you and serving their needs, trusting that that's going to build relationship, and that as those relationships are built, then trust will be given back to you and cooperation can happen to achieve goals and objectives of the group. And so when we redefine leadership in terms of that kind of influence, I think that should answer the question right away. Well, everyone's capable of doing that. Everyone is capable of caring about the person on their right and the person on their left. Everyone is capable of showing genuine concern for the needs of other people and prioritizing those needs, serving those needs, knowing that as they do that, they're building that relationship, and from that relationship comes influence, and leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Now, are there going to be people who just more naturally rise to the front, or are going to be the ones everyone's going to say, oh, this person needs to be on the stage or with the title or giving the speech? Sure. But I also would caution you that leadership doesn't always belong to the person who has the place or the position or the title. There are lots of people who are in positions of authority because they have a title, because they have a job. But they're not leaders because people don't follow them, they fear them.
Right.
True leaders people will willingly follow because they know, they believe in their heart that person has their best interest and the interest of the community as a whole in their heart as the primary objective.
Mm-hmm.
That's true leadership. And that doesn't require the flashy personality. That doesn't require the big, job title. That requires genuine care and concern for your fellow man, your fellow woman, and everyone is capable of that.
Mm-hmm. So I want to talk about the people who are the subordinates of the leaders. What can they do when their leader isn't really leading them?
So that's one of the most challenging circumstances to be in. And it's unfortunately common around the world. These concepts that I'm talking about in terms of redefining leadership to be premised on relationship and influence and trust, they are ageless wisdom,
Mm-hmm.
but really have only been promoted and talked about in the business world for the last 50 or 60 years.
Mm.
So this is relatively new in its reemergence in the professional world in the West, and then even newer in a Middle Eastern context like here. And so for sure, there are a lot of people who end up in situations where they're working for someone who is not practicing servant leadership principles, and they're not truly leading their people. They're dominating over them. They're ruling over them with an iron fist.
Mm-hmm.
And so your question is, how do I thrive under that kind of leadership? And really, I think there's two elements to it, and both of them, they go hand in hand. When you do the first one right, the second one naturally results.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one is you practice these same kinds of leadership principles without the position and the place and the title. So I'm no longer up here. Like if I'm up here, I'm the leader, and I'm not looking down on the people. Rather, I'm sitting down here with these fellow people, but they're still my team.
Mm-hmm.
They may not be my team in the sense that my name's not on the team, but they're my team in the sense that they're my teammates.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'm going to do if I'm sitting down here, I'm not going to sit at the table and say, we don't like Dajiar. He's so mean and so heavy-handed. He doesn't care about us.
Right.
If we sit at the table and if I promote rebellion
Mm-hmm.
against the leader,
Mm-hmm.
then I am only taking a bad relationship and making it worse.
Mm.
So the right solution is not shurushin.
Mm-hmm.
We're not looking for a revolution here. The right result is for me to look to the person to my right, the person to my left, and say, hey, we're in this together. It's not an ideal circumstance, but at least we have each other. What do you need? What do you need? How can I help you? How can I help you? How can y'all help me? And as we start to work together in that way and develop that kind of relationship of trust, then naturally some influence is going to emerge among us. Mm-hmm. We're going to be leading each other, and one of us, potentially one or two of us, may naturally emerge as sort of like the understood leader within the equals. It doesn't mean that we're overthrowing our boss at the top, but it means that we're understanding there's a proper place for somebody watching out for us and helping us get what we need, take care of what needs to be done. And as we do that, we're promoting a happier work environment, that circle of safety that even though our boss isn't making it, we're making it for ourselves. And when we do that, we become people who are a pleasure to lead, because odds are this guy, the boss up here, is acting like that because of some bad experience in his past, where his people tried to get away with something or did something wrong or whatever. And so he's trying to dominate and use authority and power over them in a way to control them. And when we conduct ourselves in a way that shows you don't have to dominate us, you can trust us, maybe we become the initiator of that relationship, a relationship of trust, where he can lead us not based on power but on influence. In a sense, when we develop sort of peer level influence and leadership, we become a pleasure to lead as opposed to a challenge for him to control, we can change the culture of the company from the inside out.
Another question I have is, what is the role of mentorship when it comes to leading?
So this is one of the reasons I live in Suleimani, because there are books that have been written that are far more articulate than I am on the subject of leadership. There are YouTube videos you can watch and speakers who are far more engaging than I am on the subject of leadership. I watch them because I enjoy them. I can watch Simon Sinek talking about building that circle of trust or finding your why or any number of things, and I find him inspiring. But I believe in an old English proverb that we have that tells us that the most important things in life are caught, not taught. The most important things in life are caught, not taught. What do we mean by that? Well, we understand what it means for them to be taught. It's the didactic relationship of student to teacher or reader to book. The presentation of information, you internalize it, and therefore you know. But leadership is not as much about what you know. It's about who you are and what you do. And those are things that you have to see modeled. Those are things that you have to catch as you watch someone else doing them in your life. And so that's why mentorship is so important in the area of leadership development, because you can read all of the best books, you can watch all of the TED Talks, but until you've actually operated on a team or in an organization that has this kind of leadership that I'm talking about, it sounds like a really cool idea that you don't actually know what to do to put it into practice. And so one of the reasons I live here is so that we can demonstrate, we can put into place an example of servant leadership in the operations of GLI here in the city. We can also create projects that don't only provide didactic teaching on the subject matter of servant leadership and building trust and teamwork, and those are important. But we also have projects that are designed to create that environment where you can come and experience what is it like to operate in a team that's being led in this way. So one of our current projects is the Young Leaders Initiative. And so we've got a guest lecturer in town. We've got some projects going on this week over at the University of Suleimani, teaching specifically for the Young Leaders Project. But a local lady, her name is Sahand. She's a university student there. She's been training in GLI for a couple of years now. She runs the Young Leaders Project, and what it is it's groups of students that are getting together. They're having conversation groups about servant leadership principles, and then they're putting those principles into practice, doing community service projects, helping each other out with things like I was talking about earlier, like study groups and that kind of stuff, basically trying to build the students' understanding of community and how in that community they can operate for the greater good, not just to get what I need, but to figure out what I can do to help other people. And so we're trying to create projects that don't just teach principles, but also create an environment where they can be caught, where they can be seen, they can be experienced. We're trying to give that practical mentorship piece as well, because I think for leadership development, it's absolutely key.
The last question for today I would like to ask you is, what is the best piece of advice you received when it comes to leadership that you want to pass on to others?
So after all that talk about mentorship and everything,
Right.
you would think my natural response would be to go back to a person. But honestly, in terms of something that's been most impactful, a phrase that runs through my mind every single day as I lead my team, as I lead my staff at GLI, as I engage with other leaders here in the community in Sully. Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, there's really one of them that stands out head and shoulders for me above all of them. Changes the way I approach my relationships, changes the way I approach almost every conversation I engage in, all the way down to when I'm trying to be a good father to my children in the home, and all the way up to the interactions I'm having with government officials or with university officials as we're planning projects. And it's this: seek first to understand, then to be understood. Mm-hmm. Seek first to understand what the other person feels, believes, thinks, and then seek to be understood. And why does it matter that we put it in that order? We are all naturally hardwired to have our own opinions, our own beliefs, our own convictions, and to quickly take offense when we feel like somebody is infringing on that or violating that or disagreeing with us. And so we're quick to bite back. Mm-hmm. We're quick to jump into a conversation and say, no, you misunderstood. But if we will stop, I have found consistently, and I'm not saying I'm definitely not saying I have arrived at this, but this is something I'm thinking about on a daily basis. Do I fully understand where the person across from me is coming from? Why they think, why they think, why they think it, what's the basis for it? And I don't want to be quick about this. I don't want to be dismissive. Oh, well, they just don't understand. I want to truly get into the depths of what's going on in their heart and in their mind that's bringing them to this conversation from this perspective, from this place. Mm-hmm. And I consistently find when I take the time to do that, it changes the way that I respond to them. Mm-hmm. It may not change those core convictions I have about what's right and what's wrong, what needs to be done, but I guarantee you it changes the way I communicate it to them. Mm-hmm. It changes the way that I speak in response to the person across from me. And I can also guarantee you that it changes the way they receive what I have to say. Because if they feel heard, if they feel understood and valued, I don't have to agree with them for them to still feel like there's trust and true relationship there. I have shown them true relationship by seeking to understand them first. Doesn't mean they have to be right. Doesn't mean I have to agree with them. But it means that I have demonstrated my relationship with them is more important than whatever issue we're disagreeing about in the moment. Mm-hmm. And once they know that, once they're confident that I value that relationship, we are able to disagree about this topic or this decision or whatever and still continue in a good relationship of trust because I have proven to you that I value you as a person more. Mm-hmm. And so I seek first to understand, then to be understood.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Matt, for being here. Yeah. We're really glad to have the chance to have you.
My pleasure.
Thank you. This was everything for today's episode. Have a nice day.